Hello, and thank you for joining us for this encore presentation of one of Viking's most special itineraries. Our friends at Cruise Travel Outlet look forward to building the trip of your dreams. And at Viking, we look forward to welcoming you on board. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining Traveling Virtually with Viking. We greatly appreciate the support of our travel advisors for inviting you to attend today. Before we get started, I would like to kindly remind you that our virtual chat and Q&A is open, so please feel free to ask questions during the presentation. We'll be answering them during and after. And today, I'd like to welcome Kim Lucy, Director of National Accounts for Viking Cruises in Canada. As a 30-year-plus veteran of the cruise industry and passionate traveler, she has explored the world extensively by river and ocean. So let's welcome Kim as we explore Russia. Kim?
Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining me, and thank you to all our travel advisors who invited guests to join us this morning. This is one of my favorite destinations and itineraries. I did it a few years ago, and I'm really excited to be able to share some of the insights and some of the most beautiful places to explore in Russia. I'm just going to turn off my camera so that you can see the full screen, and I'll come back at the end. But please, if you've got any questions along the way, please type them in and we'll be happy to answer them at the end. So let's get started. First of all, I just wanted to remind you that Viking really does cover the world. We travel to 7 continents, 95 countries, 403 ports, 5 oceans, the Great Lakes, and also the rivers of Europe, Russia, China, Vietnam, and Cambodia, as well as Egypt. Here you can see our where we travel by river, and you can see the vast river system throughout Europe. This is where we're going to be focused today, up here in the northern part of Europe, traveling along the Russian waterways from St. Petersburg to Moscow or vice versa. Today we're going to start in Moscow because that's my favorite way to go, and travel north towards St. Petersburg. We're going to be enjoying the waterways of the Tsars, 13 days with 10 guided tours, 1 country. It is magnificent, and actually just it offers so much to people that they might not expect. So we're going to be spending 3.5 days in Moscow. We'll be spending 3.5 days in St. Petersburg, and then we're going to be traveling through the rural part of Russia. Here's a great map that shows you the system. And what I love most about river cruising in Russia is that you really do get a sense of the history and get to meet the people. You can certainly come into Russia via an ocean cruise with a stop in St. Petersburg, usually a day to a day and a half, which really gives you a little taste of the experience. But when you do a river cruise, you really do get that in-depth experience and that opportunity to have the freedom to walk a little bit on your own and not be restricted by tours and guides. You do have to get a visa, so that has to be done in advance, but that does give you that extra freedom. And a lot of people often ask me, what's the cost of a visa and how difficult it is to get? It's not. There was a time when it was difficult to get visas for Russia. There is a process. You work with a visa company, and the cost, depending on where you are, is about $200. But when you think about the cost of doing a shore excursion, which is the only way you can get off a ship when you're coming in by ocean, that the freedom of access is really amazing. So this waterway, you can see through the central part. We travel from Moscow up a series of waterways that were actually started by Peter the Great when he opened up St. Petersburg as a capital, and he wanted to join the two capitals together. So it started over 200 years ago, and it was only finally completed in the 1960s. Between the 1930s and 1960s, Stalin was involved in completing this waterway system. It is 700 miles, and it connects 7 rivers and lakes together. And incidentally, the Volga River that we're traveling along for the most part of this experience is 2,500 miles long and is Europe's largest river. So we're going to start off in Moscow, and here you're looking at the Kremlin. Moscow is the largest city in Europe, and it has the largest percentage of billionaires in the world. And you certainly see that when you're walking on the streets. People are beautifully dressed. And if you get a chance to go to the Gom department store, which is this beautiful 19th century covered arcaded department store, you will see some of the most expensive designers, and people are dressed to the nines. It's absolutely beautiful when you get a chance to go in. But this was the capital up until around the 1750s, when the capital was moved to St. Petersburg. And then after the Russian Revolution, it came back here and Moscow became the capital. What you're looking at here is the Kremlin. And the Kremlin was originally the old walled city of Moscow. It has 19 towers. There are 5 cathedrals within the grounds. It's also the center of government. This is where, we hear about the Kremlin when you're listening to the news. That is the seat of the Russian government as well. But it's absolutely magnificent inside. So we will get a chance to tour this. And if you wish, you can add the optional tour that will take you into the armories, which is where you will find the beautiful Fabergé eggs, the golden carriages that belong to Catherine the Great, as well as a number of beautiful artifacts that were given as gifts over the years to the various czars over the centuries. It's absolutely beautiful. But we will be visiting some of the other areas of Moscow. So we'll spend some time at Red Square. At Red Square, you will see Lenin's tomb. And here is, you can see on the left-hand side, the statue of Lenin. This used to be where Stalin was interred as well, and he was displayed, but when he fell from grace, they've moved him to a different burial site, and Lenin is now featured. This is right on Red Square, and you'll also find the beautiful church, St. Basil's Cathedral. I'll show you that in a second. But we do offer a number of optional tours as well, but with our included tours here in Moscow, you're going to get a chance to ride the metro, which is breathtakingly beautiful. If anybody's ridden the metro in Paris, you will have seen, those beautiful stations with, depending on where you are in Paris, that depict the stop. But in Moscow, this was built by Stalin. Construction was started in 1932, and it became kind of like this showpiece. And there's beautiful art. You go down, down, down through these escalators, deep, deep, deep into the earth, and travel by this incredible system. They're 180 miles long, and it carries about 7 million people per day. It's remarkable. So it's great fun to do that. My husband and I tried this. It's all in Cyrillic alphabet though, so you do have to be a little bit sharp. You have to count the number of stations and kind of match it to your map. It was a great adventure. We really, really enjoyed it. So if you are a little bit adventurous, that's one of the advantages of doing a river cruise, because you have the freedom to go and explore a bit on your own. You will also have a chance to see the Bolshoi Theater, which was the first ballet school, and also visit some of the other areas by coach. We do have a free day where you can go and explore a little bit on your own. And one of the things you see there is the Tretyakov Gallery, which is one of the largest galleries. It dates back to 1856, and it houses an incredible array of art from the 18th century right up to modern time. So if you're interested in that, you can. There's also a military museum, as well as the Cosmonaut Museum. So there's lots and lots of things to see and do. You'll also get a chance to see here the beautiful St. Basil's Cathedral, which anchors Red Square. And this was built by Ivan the Terrible, who was the first Tsar in Russia. He was of Viking descent, and he settled in this area and built this beautiful church, which always reminds me of like a gingerbread house. It's absolutely gorgeous inside, and a fantastic place to take pictures, as you can see. Now, one of the things I do recommend here in Moscow is to do the Moscow by Night tour. It is, the city of Moscow really surprised me. I expected it to be much more staid and the architecture to be very kind of blockish in my mind, what was Soviet architecture, but I was really, really surprised. Stalin actually built a lot, or renovated the city, I guess, in a lot of ways, or built many of the outlying areas. And this was his utopia. This was his window to the world as far as the success of communism. And he was an amateur architect, so he he designed these buildings with beautiful cornices and beautiful decorations on the outside of even the apartment buildings. And at night, it's lit and it's absolutely magnificent. So if you are going to do an optional tour, that is one that I highly, highly recommend. Fantastic tour and really, really beautiful city by night. From here, we will be traveling up the waterways of Russia, the Volga River in particular. And one of the stops that we make is in Uglich. Uglich is a small 10th century settlement that was first recorded back around 1150 years old. And it was, it's still a very small community right on the river. It's absolutely gorgeous and one of my favorite places, but it has an interesting background. The little church that you see here is St. Dimitri on the Blood. And it was, the story behind it is that Ivan the Terrible sent his family into exile to hide because he was kind of being pursued. He wasn't a very nice ruler. And he was being pursued by the boyar, Boris Guntunov. And he was eventually murdered, but his family had gone into exile in Uglich, and they were finally found. And his this was his seventh wife, and the last of his bloodline was Dmitri, who was a his 7-year-old son, and the entire family was murdered. And where the little boy's body was found, they have built this church in memory. So it's one of the most beautiful churches, and inside there are these beautiful, beautiful icons that go all the way up to the ceiling. It's remarkable inside. But one of the other things that's really fun here is that we do a home visit. And you'll get a chance here to maybe meet our hostess that you saw there. That's Babushka Nadia, who's a personal friend of Karina Hagen, who is our chairman's daughter, and you'll see her on many of our videos. But she has arranged for our guests to be hosted by a number of families here in Uglich, and you'll get a chance to go in and peek inside their homes to see these beautiful wooden houses and to be able to try some of the local specialties, including the local vodka. And one of the things that I love was being able to have a conversation with these local families and be able to learn a little bit about their history, about the stories, about what it was like to grow up in Soviet Russia, and to be able to share some of ours. It was one of those highlight experiences that I think people will really enjoy. This is also one of my favorite places for souvenir shopping. So tell your guests, or those of you that might be thinking of traveling with us, that they have a wonderful market here, craft market, and it was one of the best places for shopping for souvenirs. We also visit Yaroslavl. Now there are a number of Golden Ring cities along the rivers of Russia. Now the Golden Ring cities figured prominently in the formation of the Russian Orthodox Church and are considered some of the most picturesque in Russia, but they also are dedicated to preserving the art, the history, the culture, and the music of Russia. So they really are quite unique. And here is Yaroslavl. It was founded in the 11th century by Prince Yaroslavl on the very spot where he killed a bear. And the bear, you will see, figured prominently throughout the city as the mascot. So it's a beautiful city, and you'll get a chance here to see some of these wonderful churches that are going through a strong renovation and restoration. During the communist era, all of the churches were closed down. Religion was banned, and a lot of the icons were stripped. Some of them were hidden, some of them were sold. And a lot of these churches were used as armories and grain elevators or grain storage. So they're now being cleaned out, they're being restored. And this is the Church of Elijah the Prophet. They restored the beautiful pews, the icons, and they uncovered the unique frescoes inside. It's absolutely beautiful. You'll also get a chance to walk through the local farmers market, and you'll also get a chance to visit the Governor's Palace, which has been restored as well to its former glory. And there's also a dance performance here, which was something I really enjoyed. Beautiful city, another lovely place to really get a sense of what the Russian experience and a chance to interact with the people. And for me, that made the big difference. You can always see big cities, but when you get a little bit deeper into the countryside, you get a better sense of any country. We also will be sailing along these beautiful waterways, and here you can see some of the scenery. The little houses that you see along the riverbank are the dachas. These are cottages for some of the people who live in the cities now, but they used to be the farmhouses of the communal farms during the communist era. Some of them are also banyas, and banyas are the Russian saunas. And if you like, you'll have a chance to experience that when we get to Mandrogy. It was something I did, and I'll be happy to share that experience with you. But when they created this waterway system, they actually created reservoirs and dams, and they flooded many villages. And here you can see, as you're sailing by, this is one of the bell towers that is somewhat submerged in the middle of the reservoir. So it's there's just some beautiful scenery, and I took some really fantastic pictures as we traveled through this area. So as we go through here, this lock system, there is actually 220 miles and 7 locks that you travel between the Volga River and the Baltic Sea. So you get a chance to travel through those. Now from here, we will move into Lake Onega, which is the second largest lake in Europe, actually. And here they have created this incredible outdoor museum called Kiji. It's on the island of Kiji. It's a small island, and they've moved many of the old wooden buildings from around Russia and recreated this village. And here you'll find some beautiful buildings like the one you see on the left-hand side. You can see how the construction is built with the logs stacked on top of each other. Many of these buildings are created without a single nail, and you can see how beautiful they are. And then, of course, the Church of Transfiguration that you see on the right-hand side has 22 onion domes, and is built without a single nail as well. And when you go inside, you've got the beautiful icons. But what I loved about this is you can walk around it, and they've recreated this village experience. So there are vegetable gardens. Every once in a while, you might see a village wedding. There are artisans in some of the buildings that are recreating some of the beadwork and the embroidery, and some of the traditional crafts and actual work that was done to make the village work. So fantastic experience in this particular area. And then again, we sail through this beautiful scenery, and here is the village of Mandrogy. Again, another village that's been recreated, but this one is an artist colony. So it's not too far from St. Petersburg. People can come by ferry or by high-speed boat here, and a lot of them do come for the day just to swim and to enjoy the arts. Here, each of these buildings features a different artist that do different types of crafts. So you'll find the beautiful lacquerware, the Fabergé eggs, and you also have these Matrushka dolls, which are the stacking nesting dolls that are famous from Russia. And if you like, here you can even try your hand at this. We do have, as an optional tour, an opportunity for you to create your own Russian nesting doll as well. Now, here is also where I had a chance to try the banya experience. And you might be wondering, how does that differ from our sauna experience? Well, it is quite fun. We went into this little wooden house, and here you get a chance. They rub you down with salt and honey, and they beat you with birch boughs to stimulate the circulation, and you sit in the sauna, and then you run down the pier and you jump into the river. It was really a local experience. We call it a local life experience, and it was something that really stood out for me. It was really fun to try something that was very local. So I encourage you to try some of the local life experiences that we do offer along the rivers. And then from there, we get on to St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg is one of my favorite cities. And the reason I often suggest to people to start off in Moscow and travel north to St. Petersburg is that St. Petersburg is really the jewel in the crown. And it is that big wow factor. I remember the very first time I went to St. Petersburg, it was in the 1970s when I was a teenager, and I was traveling through Europe with my sister and my mom, and we went into St. Petersburg. In those days, it was called Leningrad, from Helsinki, and it was under communist rule. And I remember the one thing that always stood out for me were these incredible buildings. At the time, under communist rule, it was kind of a gray and dreary place. Even in the middle of July, there was long lineups, and there really were very few cars and on the streets. It was really just buses and a few Russian-made cars that the Communist Party was using, and everybody looked a little downtrodden. When I went back, I was absolutely amazed. The city has gone through a metamorphosis. It's been restored, and it is absolutely glorious. Here you're looking at the Hermitage. But a little bit of background on St. Petersburg. It was actually built by Peter the Great in the 1700s. He wanted to create a port on the Baltic Sea, so he had access. He also was struggling with invasions from the Swedes and the Finns, and he wanted to protect his empire. He also felt that the rulers of other countries in Europe were not taking him seriously, because Moscow was really in the middle of nowhere and was considered a little bit backward. So he wanted to create some respect, and he wanted to bring his country, into the modern age, so to speak. So he had been studying shipmaking in Amsterdam. So he came back and he built the city really on in the likeness of Amsterdam and Venice, on a series of canals. There are actually 200 miles of canals in St. Petersburg. There's 101 islands that are connected by the different bridges, 66 canals, and hundreds of bridges. What you're looking at here is the Hermitage, which was the winter palace of the Tsars. This was originally built out of wood and was burnt down and rebuilt. And here you have this magnificent building that is one of the largest art galleries in the world. There are over 3 million pieces of art held within this beautiful building. And they say that it would take you 3 years if you spent 24/7, 365 days a year and spent 1 minute in front of each piece of art. It would take you 3 years to see them all. It is magnificent. And so we do have privileged access, or first up front of the line access. So we go in first thing in the morning before a lot of the crowds arrive. We get to see some of the really amazing pieces of art. And the great thing about a river cruise also is that we do run transfers back and forth from the Hermitage to the ship. So if you wanted to stay a little bit longer and spend the rest of the day there, there's a lovely cafe, and you can spend some time here in the Hermitage. There are 1,000 rooms within, and the collection ranges from ancient Egyptian art to 20th century European. We also have in the evening an opportunity to enjoy a ballet performance as well. But one of my favorite places is just outside of St. Petersburg in a little town called Pushkin. And this is where Catherine's Palace is. And this is magnificent. Again, this is a fully restored palace. It was originally built as a hunting lodge by Peter the Great's wife, first Catherine the First, and it was enlarged and I guess reconstructed by Catherine the Great several hundred, 50, 60 years later. And this is magnificent inside. I'm just going to show you a couple pictures. It has this incredible garden, but the history here is that this was actually, as the Nazis, during the Second World War, the Nazis were stationed. They had a siege of St. Petersburg, or Leningrad at the time, that lasted about, I think it was about 8 or 9 months. And finally, they were losing. And they were, they decided they were going to blow everything up on their way out. And what they did was set dynamite throughout this palace, and they pretty much destroyed it. But they have been able to restore it. And the first time I went here, there were only about 4 rooms that have been restored. And when I've since gone back, it's magnificent to walk through. What you're looking at here is the throne room. Look at the beautiful floors and the gilt work. It is fantastic to travel through here. You'll also find the amber room here, as well as the agate room. And the amber room is quite famous because it's a series of panels that are made out of about 6 tons of amber. And it's about 55 square meters. And it is a combination of finely cut amber set against mirrors and gold leaf. Now, this was completely lost during the Second World War. The Nazis either disassembled it and hid it, and no one's been able to find it, or it was destroyed. So they have painstakingly, starting in 1979, recreated these panels, and they used the original equipment to create these panels. They were originally given as a gift to Peter the Great by his ally, one of his Prussian allies, as a gift. And it was opened again in 2003, and it is magnificent. When you go in, you can't take photographs because they're worried about it damaging the beautiful amber. So it's breathtaking to go into this palace. You'll also, as I mentioned, get a chance to enjoy some of the very famous art and music of the Peterhof Ballet, or the Mandrogy, the Mariinsky Ballet and Orchestra that we work with here in St. Petersburg. I was fortunate to see Swan Lake in Catherine's Theater, which is part of the Hermitage, which was fantastic. And then as an optional tour, if you like, we do have a variety of things to enjoy here in St. Petersburg. One of them, you can go and visit one of the communist era apartments called the kommunalka. This is friends of Karina's also have allowed us to bring guests in and to see what it was like to live in these communal style apartments. Almost everybody who grew up during the Soviet era in Russia grew up in these communist era apartments, these kommunalkas, including Putin. And here, there's up to 6 families would share an apartment. Each would live in one room, and they would share bathrooms and kitchens together. They would each have their own stove and their own storage area, but it was like a communal living. So you get a chance to see that if you like, but you may want to come out here to Peterhof, which was the summer palace of the Tsars. It was built by Peter the Great to rival Versailles, and it's called Versailles by the sea. It's magnificent. Here you'll find a system of waterworks that you've got the grand staircase, and then you have this incredible series of 64 fountains. There are 37 statues throughout it, and it's remained virtually unchanged since 1721 when it was built. And it's nearly 12 miles of pumping stations. And this is a dancing fountain. So at noon, the music comes on and these fountains come out, and it's magnificent. And this canal, or this channel that you see, runs under a number of beautiful bridges that go through this ornamental garden all the way down to the bank of the Baltic Sea. And then, of course, the palace is similar to what you've seen at Catherine's Palace, some of the incredible rooms and artwork and gilt. It's really fantastic. So that gives you a little taste of Russia. It truly is one of my favorites, but if you really want a taste of Russia, you can try one of our recipes. This is beef stroganoff, which was originated in the 19th century, and it was named for the Stroganoff family. You will find these recipes on our Viking TV under the kitchen table, or you'll also find them on our Viking website under recipes. So feel free to get a taste of Russia by trying some of our incredible recipes. This is just one of many recipes that we have. In addition to that, you'll also find a lot of great Russian lore shared by Karina, who spent a lot of time in Russia. I wanted to share some books as well, because when I went to Russia, one of the books I read was Catherine the Great, Portrait of a Woman by Robert Massey. He's written many books about the Russian czars, including Peter the Great and Alexandra and Nicholas. But this particular book was fantastic. It's actually a biography, and it's based on her personal diaries. Catherine the Great was interesting because she actually was she was a German princess who was sent to Russia at 14 to marry the Russian Tsar, the young Russian Tsar, and she became one of the most powerful women in history. She transformed herself into an empress by sheer determination. She actually she usurped her husband, who was a very weak ruler, and took over. And she really she devoured the works of Enlightenment philosophers. She brought incredible artists and writers to Russia, and really transformed things. And she also expanded the empire. So it's a fantastic story. It reads like fiction, and it's a great preparation. Also, you can read The Revolution of Peter the Great. This is a book that chronicles his life, but also analyzes the reforms that that took root and spread through Russia. So if you're looking for a nice balance, this really gives you that history. If you're looking for some interesting films to look at, The Hermitage Revealed was created in 2014. It's a fascinating film that depicts the real life behind the magnificent art collection in one of the greatest museums. And if you're also interested in learning a little bit more about this, you can visit our Viking TV, which will also give you a lot of insight. Also, there's lots of different movies that you might, but Reds was nominated for 12 Academy Awards, and it starred Warren Beatty and Diane Keaton and the saga leading up to the Russian Revolution. It was a fantastic movie, so I don't know if you can still find it on Netflix, but it was one that Warren Beatty won a best director for, and it was a fantastic film. But it really gives you that Russian Revolution history that I think you'll find very interesting, and certainly gives you insight into this particular itinerary. As I mentioned, Viking TV, you can find the recipes, but the Museum Mondays are fantastic, and you can go back to the archives, and there are a number of presentations given by the director of the Hermitage, by the curator. There's also some incredible videos that Karina has done telling you about the Hermitage cats, about the superstitions of Russia. All of these are great fun and really give you insight. So I just want to say thank you. I hope I've inspired you a little bit about an amazing, amazing destination. One thing I want to really point out is that this is where Viking started 23 years ago. This is where our roots are very deep. We have operated for 23 years in Russia, and our staff, many of our staff that I met on board the ships, have been with us since the very beginning. They are amazing curators, they're historians, and they're able to share a lot of personal insight and are very open about talking about the politics, the history, the art. It really is a well-rounded experience when you travel with Viking to Russia. So I highly encourage you to give it a try and come and explore the world in comfort with us in Russia. Michael, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do, Kim. So our first question is specific to what months this itinerary typically runs.
Oh, great question. I forgot to mention the weather and some of the things. Oops, what's going on? This runs from May until about the end or mid-October. I traveled in the middle of the first 2 weeks of August, actually. Now, I just want to point out that in St. Petersburg, it rains about 300 days of the year. So when you pack for this, you need to pack some raincoats and comfortable shoes, definitely, because there's a lot of walking. But the weather does vary. It's in the northern reaches, so you're going to get cooler temperatures in April, May, and into early June. And then the summer months can be quite hot. It's not unusual to get up into the 80s in July and August, and then it starts to cool down as we travel into the fall. Now, one of the things that it's worth noting is that you do get those really, really long days. They actually have a White Nights Festival in St. Petersburg that runs from mid-May to mid-July, which is an arts and music festival. And they call it the White Nights because it doesn't get dark, or it doesn't get dark until really the middle of the night. So one of the things that I loved about it were the really long days and that opportunity to just feel like you had this beautiful scenery wrapped around you for great times during the day. But then you get the lovely fall foliage as well. So I don't know if there's a bad time to go.
Perfect. And then the next question is specific to, planning some of these optional shore excursions and stuff with a travel advisor. How would a guest typically go about doing that? Is it
well, your travel advisor is your best source of information. The My Viking Journey site will have a list of and description of many of the tours that are available. Some of them are included. We do include a tour, at least one tour in Russia every single day, but we do offer a variety of optional tours for those with different interests. So your travel advisor is the best person to be talking to, and they can help you discern which are the best options for you. And they can also book those for you through the My Viking Journey site. You can also, if you haven't booked yet and you want to explore a little bit, you can see these on our Viking, my Viking, or on my Viking Cruises site as well under Russia. And we do have a small description about a lot of the tours that are available.
Great. And our next question is specific to tiered excursions for different levels of activity. Do we offer that in Russia?
Yes, we do. You will see on any of our tours notations about whether it's easy, moderate, or demanding. So you can see whether or not it's going to be a lot of walking or not. Here, I will say that there is a fair amount of walking, particularly in Moscow. The Kremlin alone is a very large facility, and there's quite a lot of walking. But when I did travel, we were able to accommodate people that were with canes, and also there was a gentleman that was traveling with us in a wheelchair. He could walk, but his family was pushing him. There are some areas that you can't access unless you can walk upstairs, because there aren't elevators in some of these older buildings. But these are noted, and you can make those choices based on your physical capabilities.
Great. And then the next question is specific to the Hermitage. So do we offer after hours tours with the Hermitage so we can kind of avoid the crowds?
We do have some privileged access and some special access, but we also, one of the things with Viking, having been in Russia for so long and one of the leading cruise lines there, is that we do have access, early access. So we tend to have front of the line access to the Hermitage. We had to get up early, but we were at the gates by 8:30, and we were the first groups in, and that made a huge difference. The same in Catherine's Palace, because there are huge crowds, and you will see when you come out, long lineups wrapping around the buildings. But one of the big advantages with Viking is that we do have that front of the line access, and it does get you in a little bit earlier. But there are some privileged access tours. You can do the behind the scenes tour at the Hermitage, which I did, which was fantastic. And I believe there is an evening access as well.
So you can even go into the vaults of the Hermitage
Yeah.
special tour.
Yeah, that was amazing. That's where you'll find all the golden coaches and a lot of the gifts that were given to the czars by other rulers over the centuries. It's pretty remarkable.
Great. And it looks like our last question is the Bolshoi Ballet an included excursion or an optional?
The Bolshoi Ballet is not. We actually just see the theater. We do include the ballet experience in St. Petersburg. In what we do include, though, in Moscow that I forgot to say was a folkloric orchestra performance, which was fantastic. And that's with the balalaika, with the panpipes. They even played the saw. It was probably one of the best performances of the entire trip. So we do give you a variety of cultural experiences. In St. Petersburg, you also have a chance to enjoy the Russian folkloric performance, which is exclusive to Viking, and that's the Russian dancing and the music. It's great fun and fantastic performance. So but on board, because we have those extra days, if you would like to see a performance, our staff on board, I'm sure, can arrange that for you, and if tickets are available.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your presentation, Kim. And I just want to thank all of our travel advisors and again, their clients for joining us today. If you have any questions on any Russian Viking itinerary, please reach out to your favorite travel advisor. Thanks again for joining Traveling Virtually with Viking, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.